Our next speaker is really at the tip of the spear when it comes to saving our country. He's been ruthlessly persecuted by the regime because they know how effective he is. He's been at the highest levels in our military. He was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. He was the National Security Advisor. He also, and I just learned this today, he served as Assistant Director at the intelligence community for the relationships with state, federal, local, tribal law enforcement, and even with international partners. So he's been in this area for a long time. General Flynn, a great American hero. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Where's all the media that's snaking around here? You can come right up here. Get all the media right up here, all the fake news media that are out there, because there's one right here. Come on. Okay? I mean, be careful, because they're all snaking around. I just noticed a couple of them. They wear their little microphones in their pockets, and they're looking for you to say something really nasty about somebody or something so they can go back and report it on whatever major news network they have, okay? We're in a different period of time. And some of them they won't identify themselves. That's really terrible. When the media is afraid to identify themselves in a conference like this. In a conference like this, right? So I'm going to be up here and I'm going to shamelessly plug my movie. All right? My movie is, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's still weeks into this thing. It's still #1 on Amazon of all DVDs that's sold on Amazon. It's #1. Like it's beating out the likes of Willy Wonka 2. It's beating out Aquaman. It's beating out Oppenheimer. And it's beating out Barbie. Right? So, and you can go to FlynMovie.com. Go to FlynMovie.com and see it. I'm on a 35-city nationwide tour. This is, we're going to show it tomorrow night at another venue. And this will be the 9th city that we've been into. We started in Venice, Florida. And we've had about, in the 9 cities, and tomorrow night, probably adding the numbers in there, we've probably had about 6,000 people that have attended so far. And we will go all around the country. From Las Vegas, we head into California, and then up to Washington State, and then we start heading back east to the New Englands, and then down the eastern seaboard, and we're going to end up winding our way back through a little bit of the southern part of the country. We're going to finish up in Dallas, Fort Worth area, Spring, Texas, actually. And we're planning a big veterans, first responders event down in the Fort Worth area. And all the, so anybody that's down there, Dallas, Fort Worth area, you go to FlynMovie.com. For all the veterans and first responders, it'll be free of charge to show up down there. So for you all, for this type of organization, I'm only going to spend a couple of minutes, and I'm going to turn it over to a partner of mine. It is very clear that this nation is off the rails. There's no doubt about it. We're off the rails. We're in like a moral decline in the United States of America, and it's not because of Donald J. Trump. Okay, so for your little MSNBC or NBC or whoever you are, because you refuse to admit it, which really shows your own weakness. You know what they do? They go after people that they're afraid of. They target people. They don't target the weak. They don't go after the weak. You guys know this. Anybody that's in law enforcement, you know that those that are out there on the streets of our country that are the victims, they're really the weak. They go after the weak. They really do. Because if they go after the strong, they stand, as long as we stand up to them, right? As long as we stand up to them. I use this phrase, local action equals a national impact. Local action equals a national impact. And sheriffs do have a huge role and responsibility in this country. But every single citizen does. If you really understand our Constitution, if you really understand our Bill of Rights, if you understand all the aspects and all the different aspects and dynamics, the demographic dynamics, the cultural dynamics in our country, they're all changing, and they're changing dynamically. And what we have to do is we have to understand what is happening. And if you're worried and complaining about what's going on in Washington, D.C., and that's all you're doing most of the time, then you're wasting your time, right? You're really wasting your time. This is about what we do at the local level. And it's so vitally important that we understand what we do at the local level here in this country. And that's everything from, becoming a precinct volunteer, a poll watcher, right? I mean, it's that simple. Or getting involved in a local club. And I don't care what party you're in, okay? I don't care what party you're in. Doesn't bother me. People, will go, we're conservative. Okay, fine. That's great. That's great. I don't really care about that. I don't really care about Democrats, liberals, libertarians, Republicans. Doesn't bother me. As long as you love this country, as long as you love this country, if you love this country and you love that the fact that we still have this thing called the Constitutional Republic, and we still have something called the rule of law, although we have two standards in this country. We have in the last 50 years, there's five leading opposition candidates from 5 different nation states. And you can go on my Twitter feed and dig into it a little bit. I posted this a few days ago. And those opposition candidates, first of all, the other 5 were from dictatorships or communist countries. And the leading opposition candidates were either killed or they were put in jail, right? So now we have the United States of America. We have the leading opposition candidate in the name of Donald J. Trump. And, they just throw these things at him, these accusations and these allegations. And it's clearly election interference. Again, I don't care what you who you like, what you believe, but we are in a place where this country is at really severe risk. We are at severe risk. I mean, the mainstream media will tell you, and the talking heads on the mainstream media are going to tell you that everything is fine. I mean, today they're in the Senate is holding the impeachment hearings for Mayorkas, and they may have already, I just listened to Chuck Schumer, and it looks like they're just going to kind of pro forma the whole thing and basically kick it out. So that doesn't really matter because the American people are feeling this, and this is not a border problem. I'm talking about this invasion because that's just a component of something that is dramatically and drastically wrong in our country when we think that we can bring in last 3 years. Now the stats are the last 3 years. We're looking at the amount of people here are equivalent to 36 of our states. 36. The equivalent. That's incredible, right? It's incredible. So, and then of course you have Chinese introduced fentanyl. And guess what? To the mainstream media and to the fake news media, because you're in here and you're lurking around, and shame on you. Shame on you for doing that. Because you know what? Fentanyl affects everybody. Fentanyl affects every single person in this country. Okay? It affects all of us. It doesn't just affect, Democrats or Republicans. It affects everybody. And it's a biological weapon. Biological weapons, there's a reason why we have so many international treaties about biological weapons, because they're dangerous. Because you cannot control them. But the most insidious weapon is this weapon against our minds. The weapon that is now, that we see, and it's been going on for generations, really. The idea of, when we talk about information warfare, and my buddy Boone Cutler is going to come up here and talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. But this idea of, changing the culture of our country through the institutions and the framework that we have. And you know what? We really don't need, there's a lot of politicians floating around here too. And I'm not a fan of politicians. I try to help some if I think that you have the right platform and you want to do all that and you're a good person. But this country's sick of politicians too. What we need is people who want to make a difference. We need leaders who want to make a difference. It's the last thing I ever wanted to do was get into politics. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but I definitely felt something was wrong. I could see it. My lifetime is a lifetime of service to country. And we don't go, just like anybody that's in law enforcement that's in here, you don't go out work on the streets of your county because you hate the citizens of your county. It's because you love the citizens of your county, and you're trying to protect them. It's just like being in the military. We don't go fight our enemies overseas because we hate our enemies. I never hated any enemy that we face, and I face plenty of them. It's because I love something. I love my country. I love my family. I love my community. I love my children. That's why as Americans, that's why we do things. We don't do things out of spite or out of anger or out of hate. At least we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be that small minority who are represented by some in the media that are in here, because if you're operating, in the shadows here, you're doing a disservice to your profession. To your profession. Why can't we have an honest debate? Why cannot we have transparency? Why can't we have all the things that we are supposed to have in this country? Because guess what, folks? We're paying for it. When I look at the situation in the Middle East, and I'm big-time pro-Israel, so if you're not tough, I'm up here on the stage right now. But the United States of America is funding the entire thing. We give money to the Palestinian Liberation Organization. We give money to the various organizations and groups in Lebanon. We give billions of dollars to Iran. Iran takes that money. They're not going to say, nobody's asking them to do an audit. We're not asking for an audit of where those dollars go. They're pouring money into the Houthi rebels. They're pouring money into Hamas. They're pouring our money into Hezbollah. They have all kinds of operations going on in Syria. We got Russia now putting out. Russia just moved into one of their probably their top warships, I think, into the Eastern Med like yesterday or the day before. Russia put out a statement about what's going to happen if A happens, then B is going to happen. Consequences. China is aligned with Iran. So there's a global alliance out there, and when we are in these wonderful places like Las Vegas, we look at the world and we kind of go, we're like, American people are like, they're just not paying attention. Now, I will tell you, more and more Americans are paying attention, and that's a good thing. But we haven't been. We haven't been. And the reason why they hate a guy like Donald Trump, because he's incorruptible. He's an incorruptible man. And they hate him for that. I mean, it's when you're willing to give up everything, when you're willing to give your life for something, and you mean it, there's an incorruptibility, there's a fiber. There's a fiber in each one of us. Not everybody has it, and there's a threshold that we all have. Okay? And I know what my threshold is. I know what Donald Trump's threshold is. And I'm talking about he and I right now because it's like, this is insanity what we're seeing happen in our country. This is not the United States of America. It's more like the United Socialist States of America. So, if you want to write it down, write that one down. I mean, I could go on and on. I'm not, because I'm like, I hope you can sense in me, because if you truly represent what you're supposed to represent from the body of people that are here for this particular conference, then you really need to reflect on, are you doing enough? Are you coordinating enough? Are you reaching across county lines enough? Are you allowing things to happen in your towns, in your counties? Are you sharing information? That's one of the things that Alex mentioned. I spent a year going around this country looking at how poor we were sharing intelligence between federal, state, local, and tribal. Okay? That was my responsibility as an assistant director of national intelligence. So I looked very hard at these things. These are things that I know, and I studied. I'm not going to say that I spent 25 years doing it. I spent a year doing it. But I spent the better part of 3.5 decades of doing things that mattered and doing things that solved big problems. Okay? Solved big problems. And what I found in that time frame that I went around the country, and I went around the country probably 3.5 weeks out of every month, visiting all these different places. And I focused on things that are called HIDAs, right? Some of you know what a HIDA is? Anybody want to take that test question? Yeah. Yeah, see? High-intensity drug trafficking area, or zones. We also have zones. These are big deals. They're in your towns. They're in your counties. Okay, and it's not a border problem. It's a national security problem. It is all over this country. If we can't solve these problems here, we're never going to solve these problems overseas. And I'll finish with this, because I'm a big fan of Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln said that when he was 28 years old, he said that no foreign foe will take a drink from the Ohio or take a step on the Blue Ridge with a Bonaparte for a commander. He said, never. He said, America will die by its own suicide. He was 28 years old, 1838. It's a speech called the Lyceum speech. He gave it in Missouri because at the time, prior to that, why he was up there giving that speech in Missouri was because a mob, right, they had mob rule at that time in that particular part of the country. A mob had just burned alive a black man. Horrible. So Lincoln was one of those people, like a lot of our founders and other great leaders that we've had in time, that recognize that those foreigners over there, those overseas adversaries, because in our fiber as Americans is this idea of freedom, right? I mean, there's no other country on the planet that has what we have. None of them have sheriffs. No sheriffs out there. There's no sheriffs. There's a lot of police. There's no sheriffs. And frankly, we don't even have sheriffs throughout every state. There's 3 states that don't have sheriffs. Constables, maybe. But it's different. We are the only country that has that elected position. It's really fascinating. And if you study it and you understand it, that's part of why that we've been so strong. But we've allowed a moral decline in our country. We have to figure out right now, how do we stop that decline? Because it's a decline. It's a decline. The fact of human history, a fact of human history is that nation states rise and they fall. Empires rise and they fall. You're not going to run into any Athenian, anybody from the Athenian Empire or the Roman Empire. They're gone. So how much longer does the American Empire have in the arc of human history? I don't know. I feel blessed to be alive. I am glad that I'm here with you guys for a few minutes. Where I'm going to pop in, pop off like I'm doing right now. I'm going to pop out. Okay? And I just want to thank those of you that are in this business of law enforcement to remember that we are supposed to be equal in this country when it comes to the rule of law. One system of justice, one standard of justice, not one for you and one for the other guy, right? No. That's what makes us a great nation. And we have had that in the past. We don't have that right now. We really don't. And somebody wants to argue with me about it, like, they want to, call out names, fine. Label me. I love it. I love it. Okay? So thank you very much.